I really didn't want to do another commentary on the Secret Invasion episodes because I had no intentions of really doing a per episode commentary, but I feel like I need to say something about this one. Before I begin this episode, I just want to say spoiler alerts. I am going to go through the episode. I'm going to talk about different things, but I will be spoiling it. So if you haven't seen the show yet and you're interested, please go and watch the show first and then come back to this video. And with that, I will go forward. This episode starts with Nick Fury. He's taking the president to a hospital and he whispers to the president, don't trust your Rhodes. I don't know if he tells him he's a Skrull. He just says don't trust him. And then we see them roll the president into the operating room, and then Nick stations himself outside the operating room to keep watch. And of course we know what's going to happen. But anyway, that's scene one. Scene two, we come to Gravik. He's obviously upset that the president is still alive. He gets into an argument with his second in command, who he kills using his Groot ability. But the reason that the second in command was arguing because he says, well, first of all, Talos is dead, and then Gravik is upset because Nick Fury is still alive. But the second in command points out something that really throws me for a loop, and something that I pointed out. He accuses Gravik of having failed because he sent Nick's wife to kill him. And it's like, well, wait a minute. In episode 4, we're told by Skrull Rhodey that killing Nick was his call, not Gravik.
If it was Gravik, then why does he need me?
What Gravik needs, what Gravik doesn't need, that's none of your concern. I'm the one telling you to kill Fury.
And this guy is never seen with Rhodey. He's always with Gravik. So how did he even know that Nick's wife attempted to kill him and failed? That's the other thing. How do they know that they failed? It really seemed like that Rhodey, who has his own little idea, and to me that really would have worked if he's doing his own thing and he's not really following Gravik. And then we have the attempt on Gravik's life. We have to wonder, are all these Skrulls really behind him, or do they have their own opinion about things? This is a really interesting argument because it makes sense if they didn't know and Rhodey was doing his own thing, but if they did know, then Gravik sending Skrull Rhodey to tell Nick's wife to kill Nick, that makes no sense, because we also learn in this dialogue that Gravik knows that Nick has hidden the harvest. He not only hidden it, but he never trusted Gravik. So obviously they really can't kill Nick Fury because Gravik doesn't know where it is, and Nick's the only one who does. And later on in the episode, he actually calls Nick Fury and he makes a deal for the harvest. So it's like, then why were you sending Nick's wife to kill him if you needed him alive? Anyway, so he kills his second in command, and it's important, he sends a team to kill Nick's wife. Scene 3, we have Rhodey show up at the hospital with a grand total of 2 security people. I'm assuming that they are Secret Service. If they're not, where's the President's Secret Service? If Rhodey knows that he's at that hospital, then the Secret Service should have been sent there even before Rhodey got there. But he comes with a grand total of 2 people with him, one of whom we met before because Nick had broke his hand before. When the nurse just openly tells him where the president is, again, security, yeah, I know Nick took him off on his own, but still, he sends one of his men to secure the location. And so throughout the scene, it's just Rhodey and one guard and Nick. Yet when Nick turns the corner, suddenly 5 more Secret Service agents just appear out of nowhere. And it's like, what is up with the continuity? And I have to say, the editing on this episode is really jumpy and spotty. There are wildly different tones, even with the same characters in the same locations. And it feels like they're really trying to stuff a lot of exposition into this episode. And I'm going to talk about that later. So anyway, we have that. Rhodey's going to release the footage of Nick, and he's going to become the most wanted person on planet. Again, this could have been something that could have been done if the storyline was Gravik getting even with his quote-unquote foster dad. Come to scene 4, and we have Sonya, who's playing her part to the hilt. She uncovers the Skrull that is in charge of the SIS. She takes the Skrull out, and she's now in charge of it. Scene 5, we have the assassination attempt on Gravik. There are people who were dissatisfied with his killing of the other guy, and it makes you wonder, are these people who are really losing confidence in Gravik? Or was this something that Nick had put there? Because it's a character that we've seen all along, and everybody has said this character seems a little sketchy and that he's not going to be in for the long haul. Is this somebody, or is this people that Nick sent? Again, we don't know, because the writers have this love affair with not telling us anything. I understand the people within the universe not knowing what Nick is doing, but it would help if the audience at least knows something, because it would assure us that this is the old Nick that we were hoping that we were going to get. But anyway, I'll get to that later too. So once again, you have Gravik being very brutal. He's killing people. He's evil, evil, evil. But again, when it comes to killing the people he needs to kill, he doesn't do it for various reasons. Anyway, we go from there to a next scene where we have Nick talking with Gaia. And I have to say, in the last video, I speculated that this was going to be Gaia's turn to tell Nick he's too old and he needs to retire. And I'm shocked she did not do that. So they have their conversation, and she wants to bury her father. And for some reason, Nick tells her to go and seek out his wife, even though there's an assassination team coming to kill her. I don't know. Go figure. Nick tells Gaia not to let grief paralyze her. And I understand why he's saying that, but I really wish they had given Nick Fury a line like, take it from me, I've been there and I've done that, and letting yourself be paralyzed by grief is not the answer. I don't know. For me, the writing in this scene didn't stand up with the writing that we had in previous episodes. He really should have had just one more line. We mentioned the harvest, and again, that's something that should have been the story from the beginning. And it really feels like all the harvest information we're getting now was probably the original concept, and then for some reason, they decided to expand it out with all these other things, even having Gravik doing things that are going to cause World War III, even though he's not ready for it because he does not have the harvest yet. Again, his motivations are at cross purposes with each other. Scene 7, Sonya, now in charge at SIS. She finds the Skrull husband and wife team research team, and we get fuller details of the Super Skrull idea. Again, these other attacks to cause World War III, when we are showing that Gravik is not ready because he doesn't have his Super Skrull ability, because he doesn't have the harvest, which would give him the Avengers powers. Then why the hell is he trying to start World War III now? Sonya reveals more details, and then she takes out the guy, and she makes a speech about the men on this planet. And it's kind of like the Power Girl moment, and you're really going to get that later in this episode, and I'll talk about that too. Scene 8, we're back at Nick's house, and the wife is talking to Gaia, and she needs help to bury her father. And again, they're just very zen and slow and eased about it. Of course, Gaia's sad, but you got an assassin squad coming. And when Gaia first shows up, I don't know why she didn't have on her gear that we're going to see later. She should have been already prepped because she knows it's coming. Scene 9, we go to Skrull Rhodey. He convinces the president that the Skrulls are working with the Russians. Again, I mean, you got like 17 scenes in this episode, so they are really flying along. Then we come back to scene 10, and you have Gravik call Nick, and it's like, this is the storyline they should have had from the very beginning. And there was no reason not to let the audience know. Nick should have been on the station. He learns about the initial attack. Maybe it was the attack to get the Frost Beast, or maybe it was the attack to get the Groot DNA. Or I don't think it should have been the extremists. I think the extremists should have been what they got instead of the Moscow attack. It should have been an operation to go and gather that from wherever it was, because clearly Nick Fury didn't have control of those things, but he did have control of the Avengers DNA. Gravik, I'm not going to start, if you don't want me to start World War III, then give me the harvest. And it's like, dude, you've been trying to start World War III with attacking the president, with doing the Moscow attack. You want to blow up that UN plane, and you were going to do all of that, even though Nick Fury hadn't given you the harvest, and you already knew it wasn't there, because somebody said either in the first or second episode that the harvest wasn't there. It was his first in command who said that to the scientists. And I think we saw that in episode 2. Again, the sudden change in tactics. You're not going to start World War III, but that's what you've been doing all along. And again, it's just a mishmash of storylines, and it really could have been a much better show. Even keeping it at a local, smaller, non-cosmic, Earth-based level. When Nick's talking to him, he's getting on the plane. Again, they're kind of giving us this old Nick. And like I said, I was wrong. I thought Gaia was going to be the one to say that Nick was old and dusty and should, lay out the pasture. But no, we get this unknown guy. And I'm trying to see if this is the same guy that was in the Black Widow movie, the one that was helping her and she was stringing him along because she, keeping him in the friend zone. I'm trying to see if it's the same guy. I don't think it is because this one has a accent and the one in Black Widow's movie didn't. But kind of look the same. Again, nondescript person of color. Go figure. And anyway, I don't know where the hell this dude came from, but he's the one to throw shade at Fury in this episode. So I'm going to add this unknown clown to the board, the shade parade on Nick Fury. The next scene 12, Gaia and Nick's wife, they bury Talos. Again, the mood shift and tone shifts and even shifts in the music in this episode is like, is strange. They're trying to do so much, but they're constantly shifting the tone and the mood of this episode. So anyway, they bury Talos, and in scene 13, they're in the house, and Nick's wife is very zen about this whole thing. Again, the mood here is so laid back. You do have assassins coming, but y'all are just talking about you'd rather meet them here, and you're so zen-like until that first bullet comes through the door, and then these two women, they turn into action heroes. They turn into John Wick / I forget the dude's name from Extraction. It's a nice scene. It's an intense scene. And thank God for smaller budgets, because when they shoot people, they die. Unlike John Wick, you're shooting people point blank in the head and the chest and center mass, and they're just still coming. And the same thing with the Extraction movies. It's like, really? How many times do you have to shoot somebody, before they're down? At least here, they go down for the count. Action-y type of thing. You see these two women kicking butt, and it's really nice. But again, I'm saying, why wasn't Nick's wife already in her outfit? She knew somebody was coming into the house. She confronted Guy with a gun, but she's still dressed like she's going to have a relaxing evening and sip some wine. Why wasn't she already in this gear? Like I said, the change-ups that are happening in this episode, even within scenes, is mind-boggling. But again, you have your obligatory action girl moment. Again, the women in this series, in this episode, have really stepped forward because they had so many scenes. And again, I'm going to talk about that later. The next scene 14, Nick meets up with Sonya at the airport. We see that Black Widow mask from the movie. I think the first time we see it is in Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier. And I had a really serious question. If that mask can mimic other human beings, can it mimic a Skrull? Wouldn't that be interesting if the human beings had technology that would even the playing field, because they can then mimic Skrulls? Now, they couldn't get their memories and stuff like that, but if they could look like Skrulls, what would that do? So you have a really quick scene again where Guy is saying bye to Nick's wife. I have a feeling that this almost felt like it should have been its own episode, because again, the tonal shifts from the rest of what's going on is so bizarre that it really feels like this was almost felt like it could have been its own episode. But anyway, Guy says goodbye to Nick's wife. Then we come back to Nick and Sonya, and we get the full explanation of the harvest and all of that. And I keep saying to myself as I'm watching this, why the hell wasn't this the main storyline from the beginning? And then we have our last scene where Nick Fury is back. He puts on his eye patch. He puts on his signature long coat. And we see that he has the harvest. And this is the Nick Fury we always wanted. And we're kind of given a hint that despite being torn down for 4 episodes, which we can't get out of our head, by the way. But now in this 5th episode, we're back to the Nick Fury. But the damage that was done cannot be undone, really. My summation of this episode and the series itself is that it's a mess. Story-wise, it's a mess. You can have good performances, you can have some good action, you can have some good writing, but overall it's a mess because they're trying to do too much. And I think part of it is that modern storytelling, even though we have less episodes, I think in the past when we had standard television episodes and you had 24 episodes a season, you could take your time and tell better stories. Episodic as well as multi-episode stories. And then there's also this tendency with new writers to try to keep so much from the audience so you can surprise us. Why? letting the audience have superior knowledge actually builds more buy-in, because now we're anticipating the actor finding out something. And so in this one, keeping so much from us about Nick Fury and what he's doing makes no sense. It makes sense for the people inside the universe, but for the audience, no, because we needed to know this about Nick because you were ripping him down for 4 episodes. But I have to say, as we get to the end, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do and how they're going to finish it. Most likely people are betting that Guy is going to fight Gravik, and I can see that now, particularly since she turned into a John Wick Rambo in this episode. And it seems like Nick Fury does have something up his sleeve, but again, I don't understand keeping all this stuff secret from the audience when that would have tied us in. But I actually like this episode less. Simply because it just threw everything out there that should have been from the beginning. So I like it less because it just really highlights the lost potential of the series. So anyway, that's my take on it, and I'll see you in the next video.